Senator Agnes Kavindu Mudama. You may now move your motion.
Thank you, Chair, for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the motion in changed version, and I will change the figure 213 to 223, and the figure 12 to 44. Motion on compensation to the Kenyan victims of the 1998 bombing of the United States Embassy in Nairobi. That aware that disaster is defined as an overwhelming event, circumstances that test the adoption of responses and community individuals beyond their capability, and leads momentarily to massive disruption of functions for a community and individuals that often exceed their capability to cope with existing resources. Further aware that such was the case with the 1998 US Embassy bomb disaster in Nairobi, in which many of Kenyans' casualties resulted from the collapse of adjacent building located within 2 or 3 blocks radius, and with reverberation being felt in most parts of Nairobi that resulted to 223 Kenyans and 44 Americans killed, and over 5,000 citizens of both countries being seriously injured. Noting that US allies, including Kenyans, have endured the great burden of death and long-term, and in many instances, permanent physical and psychological injury. Further noting that the United States government has since compensated some of the victims and families of the US citizens, leaving the families of Kenyan citizens uncertain that victims uncompensated. Now, therefore, the Senate resolves that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs advance relationship, friendship, and compensation between the United States and Kenya by supporting the eligibility of Kenyans and American victims and their personal representatives, surviving spouses, and next of kin in the Victim Compensation Fund pursuant to the Justice for United States Victim to sponsor terrorist acts, and 1, partner with the Ministry of Health to explore subsidized medical treatment for the surviving victims of the bomb blasts. Chair, Mr. Speaker, noting that Americans have funds the US Victim State-Sponsored Terrorist Fund, and given that, Mr. Speaker, Kenyans and even Tanzanians suffered a battle that did not belong to them because the Al-Qaeda group had targeted the American embassy and not Kenya. Kenyans suffered in a battle that was not theirs. And so over 5,000 were injured. 223 people died, Kenyans, and Americans 44. And at least 300 were either permanently blinded or suffered severe vision loss. Over 1,000 suffered eye injuries. Some were totally blinded, namely a few of them. That is one, Catherine Bwere, Douglas Asiolo, and three, one, Stanley Mutuma, among others. Right now, as we speak, Mr. Speaker, we have one Mr. Meshach Nyakundi who has throat cancer and right now is looking for funds to replace his voice box because it has been removed. He's struggling, he has no funds, he has nobody to help, and that is why we are fighting and requesting the Americans to involve Kenyans in this fund, because they suffered a battle that did not belong to them. And on humanitarian grounds, they should remember these people who are still suffering up to today. In August 7th, this year, will be 25 years of these Kenyans suffering, waiting for justice, which they have not received. Many divorces and many families disputes were caused by this bombing. Many people were still going through treatment, which they cannot afford and have died since. Mr. Speaker, I ask Halwale to second.
Senator Mudama and honorable members, it's now 6:30, and Senator, for your comfort, you still have got 13 minutes in the next sitting to continue moving your motion. You've only utilized 7 minutes, you still have got your